So in this video, we're going to talk about some of the basic ideas surrounding taxes in the United States. We will later look at just a basic way of calculating your taxes. But for now, we're just going to focus in on understanding a few things just generally about taxes here. So, in the United States, you are probably already paying taxes and you are forevermore going to pay taxes unless something crazy happens and our system is completely changed. So, that being said, when we talk about taxes, when you pay them, your taxes are either a direct tax or an indirect tax. So if you pay a direct tax, that means the money is going directly from the person paying the tax to the government. There isn't any in between groups. So this can be taken out directly from accounts, or you can actually write a check, send money to the government here. So this is a pretty instantaneous collection here. Some examples of this would be income tax. So when you get paid, that money is automatically taken out before you actually receive your paycheck. Same with FICA taxes. Excuse me. So that's money that goes towards Social Security and Medicare that comes out of your paycheck as well. And property taxes are also another direct tax. Twice a year, you write a check to the government to cover those taxes. The other alternative would be an indirect tax. So this is money that's paid to another group that is then paid to the government. So an example of this would be sales tax. So sales tax is a tax on businesses to cover the amount of product that they are selling. So businesses pass that burden on to consumers, which is why we pay a sales tax to help cover that cost so they don't have to take all that money out of their profits. So in that case, you pay the businesses the taxes and then they pay the government the taxes. And it's a little bit longer of a process to take there. So when we're looking at who has the burden to pay, that's something known as the incidence of tax. So, for example, in a direct tax, if you are responsible for paying for the property that you own, you're the only one who can pay that tax. You can't go to a neighbor and say, hey, can you cover this for me? There's no way to shift that burden onto them because they don't own that property, right? With an indirect tax, since we have multiple groups involved, the burden of taxation, the incidence of tax can shift from being completely on the businesses to being somewhat on the business and somewhat on consumers. So when we're looking at this, again, it comes back to who has the burden of taxation. If you don't have to pay a tax, you don't have the incidence of tax. You don't have any burden to cover that tax. Okay, so when we're looking at taxes here, nobody really likes to pay taxes. So that is one of the questions. Why do we have to pay taxes? Right? In the United States, we fought a war against Britain partially for the taxes that were being paid. And today we have a high degree of taxes, and everything that can be taxed is taxed, or there are fees on things, anything that goes through the government. So why do we pay them? Why not just scrap all of them and throw it away? Well, there's a couple of big reasons for that. One is that we kind of did try this at the start of our foundation. So after we separated from Britain, we had the Articles of Confederation, and we tried to not allow the government to collect taxes. They could request money, and the states could say yes or no, but they didn't really have the power to collect any direct taxes. And so they suffered for that, and it was part of the reason that our country almost collapsed, was that they didn't have the money to fund the things the government needed to do. Today, under our Constitution, our government does collect the tax dollars, and that goes towards all of the social programs, that goes to all of the public goods that are offered to help collectively pay for the things that as Americans we all can benefit from or at some point get access to. We also talked when we were talking about free market economy, that if you have no government intervention, so we're not collecting taxes because the government's not providing anything, then that means you have to directly pay for everything. So there is no public schools because we don't want the taxes to be collected. So all schools would be private, which means you have a bill to pay to help cover the costs of salaries and books and coursework and devices and electricity and food and all those things that go into a daily running of a school. you're going to have to directly pay for them. You'd have a privatized police force who gets to pick and choose where they're operating at, or what crimes they're enforcing, or what that looks like. You would have a privatized fire department. So if you want the fire department to put out a fire, they're going to charge you for it. You're not going to have nicest roads to drive on because you're going to have to front that money for it, or you're going to have to pay to drive on a road so that the person that put it down can maintain it. Everything would be privatized. And we said as a country, we don't want that. We want some things to come from the government. And so we allow the government to collect taxes to provide those things. Now, the more we ask of the government, the higher the tax rates are going to have to go and the more taxes that are going to exist. And so if you want less taxes, you would ask less of the government. You also pay your taxes because it's the law, and if you break the law, you get fined and you can go to jail. So you need to make sure that you are paying your taxes. All right, go ahead and go to the next video. We're going to talk about concurrent powers and how we know the government has the ability to collect taxes.